However, with a large population of women spending significant amount of time on entertainment, especially through traditional media, we'll try to focus on how women gamers can be brought to the forefront through this chat. So for this discussion, we have with us two very eminent experts. We have with us Mr. Rahul Puri, founder, The Gaming Reporter, and Ms. Purnima Sitaraman, Women in Games Global Hall of Fame winner and game designer, Zynga. With this, I would now like to invite and welcome Mr. Rahul Puri and would request you to kindly take the discussion forward. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Payal. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Rahul Puri, editor of a 360-degree gaming news portal called The Gaming Reporter. And with me today is Purnima Sitaraman, who has made, I think, quite a name for herself since she started her career in the world of gaming in 2006. So, hey, Purnima, how are you? Really glad to host you today on this fireside chat.
Hey Rahul, quite good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So let's begin by taking a little bit of your time and talking about your journey, right from your interest in video games to be inducted in the Women in Games Hall of Fame. Please tell us about that.
Hey, so I'll just quickly summarize it, I guess. It kind of started when I started playing games a little bit more seriously, I would say. Game development happened by chance, but I got a PC because of academic reasons. And my friend introduced me to games like Age of Empires and Warcraft 3. And that kind of piqued my interest in a little bit more deeper aspects of gaming. I started designing my own campaigns at for Age of Empires, and I think uh, I didn't quite know I was doing game design or an aspect of it, but I think it definitely piqued my interest a little bit more. I didn't know a career could be made out of that in India at that point. So, after my engineering, I was looking for programming jobs. Just happened to be a game development company where there was an opening, and I joined them as a programmer. But I also got the opportunity to work as a game designer there. And that's kind of when the whole interest into game design started for me. And today I am, after 15 years in the industry, essaying different roles. Started my own company, have been a product manager, studio head, producer. And yeah, I think it's incredible validation and recognition, especially to be in the Women in Games Hall of Fame, alongside veterans like Brenda Romero, Audrey Leprince, Beth Lapensi, and all of them. It's just almost like a dream come true, I would say, but really did not expect or see this coming. So.
I know you have had this question by heart now, but Purnima, gender difference in the gaming world is a long with standing issue. So tell us how women's relationship with games has evolved over the years, according to you.
I think generally the problem has been two things, right? One is your patriarchic notions, and second is accessibility and awareness. So one thing I would say is usually when there is a women in household are looking at jobs that are taking care of the house and all of that. So when they get a break, it's not necessarily going into something like gaming. It's most like they are trying to rest it out. And then when it comes to awareness and accessibility, where do you have these kind of systems to play games on? That becomes another major question for women, or in general, even for people who are from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Where do they find the opportunity? And even if they use it for leisure, how do they do it? Like there is no awareness, there is no understanding of how that could work. And that has somewhere, categorized and kept the women folk outside of it. And also the elitism that I would have to definitely say, where, it is a man's field, man's domain. And if I like something like a casual game, then I'm looked down upon as a gamer. And these things actually make you lesser and lesser prone to coming into these domains, even as a gamer or even as a game developer. So I generally feel it's a contributing factor of all of this that has prevented more women from coming into it.
Sure, now that you brought it up, I want your views on how more and more women will become part of this gaming industry? Because currently there are only perceived notions that women like so and so genre of games, and we talk about typical profiles of these women gamers. So the data is not enough, according to me, to build upon. So how will more and more become women become part of this gaming industry?
I think at this point, there is no permanent solution. There are two things I always tackle. One is at the grassroots level, which is the awareness aspect of it, right? Gaming as a pastime need to become a more commonly accepted phenomenon, right? And this goes beyond gender. It is something like how we watch, how we have normalized watching a TV series. It's the same way playing a game has to be normalized. We always, I think, as parents, we are also worried about the addiction, the whole violence aspect of it that comes with it. These things will reduce with awareness and understanding. For instance, there are adult content that's being streamed on TV, but we ensure that our children don't watch it. There are times that it is aired, and we have control even in the gaming side of thing with rating to make sure that it doesn't fall in the wrong hands. So having a slight monitoring system and yet supportive of it, right, is very critical. For example, at one point, say, taking a career in acting, music, or cricket was frowned down upon. And today there are much more parents who are encouraging that, right? So, for example, even if you take cricket, today we can go put them in a coaching center. Music, we have training centers where you can get your kid and board, like, trained for it. Similarly, gaming has to become normalized, right? That's the whole problem that we are facing right now. And then on the other end of the spectrum, when it comes to, say, game development or streamers or professional players, in these aspects, we need more women leaders. And that's something we'll have to fight for. Diversity needs to exist. And right now in India, I'm focusing on women, but it also goes to marginalized genders. Across the globe, we also see that women of color are underrepresented. And I think generally people of color are underrepresented, right? So these are some of the aspects we'll have to fix from the top as well as the bottom. And together we will be able to come at a better place. I would definitely say, compared to 15 years ago, to what I see now, there's much more accessibility. We have social media platforms. We see a lot of women streamers, players. Everyone has taken it upon themselves to propagate and promote this agenda that women can also play, whether it is casual or hardcore, it doesn't matter. The interest lies across the spectrum, and it's coming to light. And I hope more and more such people come forward and continue this forward.
Yeah, I'm sure society is changing, but with this current shift in society's perspective towards women, we're seeing female characters, especially in the protagonist role, that is being much more appreciated in video games, according to me. Clearly, the social change did that, right? Do you believe if the situation is turned upside down and gaming being a very strong medium of expression, does it have the power to affect the society, youth, etc.?
So that's tricky. I would say yes and no. What games can do is create an impact. It can bring about a change in thinking, but whether you enforce on that thinking or not is up to you, right? It's more like a guidance system. It can say, hey, this is how it is. Maybe this is what it works, but it's upon the person who is consuming it to make that and carry it forward. So definitely we can bring about social agendas. Like I worked with the Election Commission and NID Bangalore to create a game on voting awareness, right? So we can create this, we can put it out there for you. How you consume it and what you take forward from it is really up to the player. And that's true for any game we put out there, right? So even sometimes as game designers, we plan for something, but the players actually find something else to do in it. It's an art form. So it's like poetry. If you the writer has the poet has written it with something else in mind, but someone who is consuming it consumes it very differently, not necessarily in alignment with what the poet had written it with. So this kind of system exists across game spectrums. So yes, and there are some amazing games where we are normalizing LGBTQ, we are normalizing diverse backgrounds, and this is amazing. We need to have more relatability. At one point, It was just men making games for men. So, the objectification of men, women, and all of that became such a norm. But later, when women started entering into this field, they also started to see that this is a potential market, right? At the end of the day, there's also business. So you can see you're leaving out on more than 50% of your market by not catering to them. So then people started to, there are two aspects of it. One is your, social reasoning for it, and the other is also business, because let's face it, at the end, it is a business. So I think it has married quite well, and we can see that at the end, content is king. Same goes with even movies. Some of the smaller indie movies have done remarkably well, without any misogyny, without any of the calling or any of those aspects. It has done remarkably well, and we have games like that where games like Florence, Gris, Ori and the Blind Forest, Journey, and all of that have done incredibly well. So there's proof that lovely content will work, and gender is not something we need to focus. But when we are doing it as a woman, I like to play a woman who's like, there's a relatability, something I can't do in real life. I'm doing it through my character. So I need to have that relatability. The same with other genders, right? So I feel like letting them all come together is so crucial and essential. And that's happening. And I think it'll continue to happen. The more it happens, the more we are in a much welcoming world of gaming for everyone.
I agree, Punima. Gaming is an art, gaming is business, but I wanted to deep dive a little bit more because we are on the topic of social issues, one that we have spoken about. But do you think games also have the power in them to address social and psychological problems that the people are facing? Problems like gender bias, peer pressure, racism, and there are several others I'm sure you would know. And recently, games like Life is Strange and Tell Me Why are very prime examples of that. What do you have to talk about that?
Definitely. I think games are a lovely medium of communicating ideas, narratives, and storylines, fictional or otherwise, right? And the relatability component that I spoke about. Now, Life is Strange, you brought that up. Amazing game, right? You are talking about someone going through, it's a coming of age story where they have like the mystical element of it, and they're also talking about relationships between friends, or lovers, and all of that. And for a teenage to have that relatability, and like a lot of introverts, I have seen that even in the past, relate with games, and games have opened mediums not just through it but through also the community that comes with games, right? So World of Warcraft, for example, have had people who have stopped suicides, because people are deep into depression and anxiety, and people around the globe in a community, in a guild, have tried to help and overcome these problems. There are games that help with physiotherapy. There are games that help with autism and ADHD. All of this is huge. Today we also have like so many companies working towards gamification in education. And why is that? Is because psychologically it works, right? It's much easier to understand a component through gaming, because besides other medium, what gaming also provides you is the interactivity element. So you are part of the system. It's not that someone else is making those decisions for you. You are becoming a part of it. So it feels more closer. People who are closeted and not able to talk to someone else use games as a medium to come out, use games as a medium to explore themselves, to become better even in real life, right? So there is that relatability coming from the game to the player as well. And definitely, I think issues can easily be dealt with in games. There are casteism or LGBTQ, any of the social problems. There is even things about privacy that are being dealt with in through games. All of this comes together. But at the end, I would say games can only take it to a certain point, and after that, it is up to us how we consume. We could probably play it and then move it, keep it aside. Celeste also deals with actually a lot of anxiety related issues, put very well through the platformer narrative. And Gris actually deals with depression, the 5 stages of grief actually. And we have these amazing games coming there and showing that people who suffer from this are also your protagonists, right? There is a relatability even there. And sometimes through these narratives of games, you can help yourself overcome something that you're feeling that you are unable to talk to someone, but through games you can release those emotions. So definitely, I think games are a lovely medium from anything from pure entertainment to every aspect of emotions, aesthetics, sensitivity, all of that covered. So it really depends on what we pick and choose to play.
Very well answered, Purnima. Let's come back to women in gaming. And I'll ask you this again in a little different way. Basically, I would want you to list them down for me. Uh, what steps do you think can be taken by the gaming industry at large to ensure proper representation and bring diversity in this, I would say, very male dominated sector? Let's talk about just three steps that comes to your mind quickly.
So one thing is, I think women leadership. That's something I always promote. Most of us have had enough hurdles getting through our promotions and ranks because we are women. Because we are always looked at as, oh, she might need to spend more time in her domestic life, so she will not be able to spend time at work and all of that. Other things that comes with it. The typical glass ceiling exists, right? So having more women leaders in the top is important as much as we have allies, and it's amazing that we have great allies today. But the thing is that what happens while facing these hurdles is something only a woman can understand. Like, for instance, for a transgender person, I can only empathize with them. I cannot actually truly understand what they are going through. So, we will need someone like them to represent at the top to be able to make sure we are covering and looking at the right issues, right? The second step would definitely be to mentor these people. Like a lot of them don't have enough access and understanding how to get into this industry. So you have like a close mentorship or even growing them to the next stage. We see a lot of women who are coming at an entry level, but when we are to hire at a mid or senior lead levels, we don't see enough on the women pool. So that's something we'll have to fix. We make sure they're mentored right to make sure they can step into the next direction. So we keep our second in command ready to go. And then comes to the bottom pole, which is awareness. I think so many of the events that I've spoken to, especially when it is more women-centric events, we know that a lot of women are focused in, say, STEM. Like India, actually, we have better engineering representation than, say, globally, right? When it comes to STEM education, India is slightly better, I would say. Definitely not as much as we would want it to be, but we still have a lot of programmers who are entering the IT industry, but still reluctant to enter the gaming industry, even though the barriers are the same, right? The entry points are the same. So this is where awareness is important, where we have to make sure that we do not neglect them. The main fear I've seen with women is that they fear being judged about not being hardcore gamers. So this elitism of what gaming is and how that might how that might scale into their future in work, in career, is a fear that prevents them from jumping into this industry. We have amazing artists who are going into more transmedia art rather than coming into gaming. Same way with programmers, product managers, and all of that. So we need to raise this awareness. We will need to tell them, we need to make parents aware that there is a huge career in gaming. It's not something where people are just playing and just wasting their time, right? Of course, gaming is for entertainment. I'm not saying everyone who plays games needs to join the gaming industry in any form, but there is a merit to those who are playing and who are genuinely interested in it. And parents need to understand there's definitely a career to be made out of it. 15 years ago, when I started, it was such a niche industry and so nascent that financially we were not that stable. But that's not the case anymore. Today, India is looked at as one of the prime gold mine for game development. And this is the best time to be in to cash in on that cash cow, I would say, right? So forget your engineering, medical, and all of that, where everyone's struggling for the same thing. Here's a new industry that has opened up that is financially secure, has a great career growth path, and definitely wants more diversity coming in. So Why not? Like, this is the best place. So that awareness also has to come through. I think with these three, we will be in a much better position.
All right. So leadership, awareness, and mentorship. These are the three things that you said. Uh, let's go into the awareness part because that's where I think you will address problems for a lot of young women, right? So I want to know what can be done to encourage these young women, more young women, to take up careers in programming, game development. I also own a gaming news website, and it somehow is also my responsibility to address this. What do you think? In what ways can we do it?
So I think firstly we need to make it a little bit more accessible in the sense when I say accessible, game playing games has to be made more accessible. We still keep I'm going back to this elitism, which is true because even as women we look down upon women who play casual games like Candy Crush. Like every time I ask people like, oh, do you play games? And like not everyone raises their hands, and then I'll have to go deeper into, hey, do you play chess? Do you play Candy Crush? Do you like playing Subway Surfers? And then more people are like, yeah, I do. I said, then why are you not raising your hands when I say you are gamers or you are players, right? So they themselves have somewhere, deeply told themselves that they are not gamers because the poster child of gaming or a gamer girl is essentially with headphones, with a great setup, and with LED lights. This is the poster child that we are going with. So your housewives, your regular people who are not into hardcore gaming feel like they don't fit in that spectrum, right? That extravagant area of gaming, which has its own place. The thing is that everything is a spectrum. Like that is definitely working and that's great. Then we have the other spectrum where my mom actually plays Candy Crush, like she's in some 4,000 level or something. She loves playing that. She is my mom. I am in this industry, but when I ask her, are you a gamer? I think she will still answer no, right? That's the problem we need to tackle. We need to make sure that this is as men, as within people in the industry, as boys. Something I also tell my NID students is we need to make sure that when you are, you have a head start. When you go for an interview also as a man, this I have personally faced where I have gone for an interview and the questions I am asked versus a male candidate asked is very different, right? Because they want to double check that I am actually interested in gaming or that I know game development, right? So when you have that advantage, what you should do is encourage more women, hold their hands, bring them up to speed, and be the strength behind them, be the force behind them to help them grow. And that's the only way you can push them forward because we ourselves as a community, as most of these women representing majority of them are reluctant because we feel this is your domain. So we are reluctant to enter it. So we need more hands coming to us and saying, we will hold you, we think you belong here, come on board, we will guide you. If you don't know anything, that's perfectly fine. We will help you, we'll nurture you, and we'll get you ahead. I think that bonding needs to come through, and that I see is happening. I have been pretty lucky and privileged where when I started my gaming career, that was not a gaming career, but gaming itself, one of my friends helped me. He trained me into how to play this game. I was not aware. I didn't learn on my own. He actually helped me. He taught me, and that's one of the reasons I exist. So we need more such allies to step in and help us out, right? And of course, the women community is definitely here who is looking for more women coming into this field. So I would say this is where we can step up, we can encourage, we can create normalize that playing a Candy Crush is the same as playing a God of War or a Counter Strike. That alignment needs to be there. That elitism has to be broken. Everyone has their own place and let everyone play what they want.
Yeah, right. I also realized this a couple of years back that this is a very iceberg kind of a problem where 20% is seen, and what is seen is considered as gaming, which is esports and hyper casual gaming. There's 80% which we do not know is gaming, right? Like you just mentioned, Candy Crush. So there are a lot of people, women, men, uh, beyond 30, 35 years of age group who are also gamers and comprise of 80% of the gaming community, but they or others do not know about them. So very well put, Punima. I have just one last question for you, and this is really important because I am looking for an answer from you in form of an advice, like you would like to share with these young female audiences who plan to venture into the gaming industry, right? There must be some female audience that must be listening to this webcast. What is this piece of advice you would want to give to them?
Step out of your comfort zone and don't give up. I think those are the best advices that I have followed and I have worked for me. Every time we put ourselves out of our comfort zone, we aim to capture another domain. Like it's pretty much a game. Think of your life as a game. Capture the flag, you keep capturing different domains, and you can do that only if you step out of your base. If you're going to sit there and defend all your life, you will never be able to capture that. If it's supposed to be offensive, you have to step out of your base. So do that. Get out of your comfort zone. It's hard, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging, but that's what will nurture you, that's what will make you stronger and better. And today you definitely have more help than how it was decades ago. So please don't hesitate. Reach out to people on asking how to do that. And so that would definitely be my first step. And don't give up. Sometimes it's hard, and not everyone makes it into the gaming industry. Now it has become even more trickier because there's talent coming from everywhere. But that just means that you have to upskill yourself a little better. It doesn't mean that you necessarily just give up because one or two people didn't agree with your thought process or didn't want to hire you. I have been rejected multiple times in my life, even after experience. Sometimes it's always just an alignment, right? Like if I am speaking to someone, what they are expecting me to do versus what I actually want to do, there could be a mismatch. So don't take rejections too seriously. Use it as a learning opportunity and keep moving forward. So these are definitely my two pieces of advice.
Thanks. I think it's our time up, but I wanted to very seriously ask you about the challenges that women face, conversations around unequal pay, but that's for another time. So, but thank you so much, Purnima, for your uh, quite upfront answers and really informative session. Thank you so much, Purnima.
Thanks, Rahul. I had a great time chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Purnima, and thank you, Rahul. It has been a pleasure to hear you and have you on board for this session. Thanks once again. And thank you so much, everyone, for staying tuned. We'll be starting with our next session for the day, which is the concluding session at 3:45. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey Prakash,
Please, hi.
hi. So how was it? हो गया?
Good, good. It was very good. Yes,
Excellent, excellent. तो अपना अभी लास्ट ये वाला है ना?
yes, yes.
ठीक है. And सुबह सवेरे वाला कैसे गया?
And that was awesome.
Hmm.
Only
Very good.
Mr. Nawani will explain. It was awesome. All three
Very-
speakers were very means exciting with this new
Ah.
word, Bollywood.
Ah, got it. Very nice, sir. तो अपना क्या प्लान है अभी? Can you check with both of them if we can start a
Yes,
little bit earlier? Or?
yes, I just pinged Mr. Nawani also, and
Ah.
uh,
Because he needs to leave by 4:15, he said, right?
yes, yes.
Hey, Rajan, hi. Has Sharan joined it? Not yet, no?
No, he just joining. I just pinged him.
Rajan's also not in yet, no?
He's about to.
Yeah.
Hi, Rajan.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Girish. Hi. Hey, how are you?
All good here. I heard the session in the morning was pretty kick-ass here.
Ah, yeah. That's why we said let's introduce this new concept, which we
Right.
wanted to do that day. Then what happened? I reached out to these Hollywood guys, and all of them confirmed. So
Got
then
it.
we said, let's do one. Only thing they said, you want to do it at 3 in the morning. So I said, okay, we'll do it. So I said, anyway, it's the last concluding day. We don't have a valid date. So
Right.
it worked out well.
Excellent. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's a good, entertainment being led, not regional, with LA as Hollywood and in Mumbai as Bollywood, but global as Hollywood with gaming at the
Yeah.
top. It's a very powerful theme, so
True. Very nice. Very
yeah.
nice. Anyways.
No, I think overall, whatever we said, 2 weeks we pulled it off, man. quite,
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
well. Thanks to you and to Sharon and both of you
No, I
guys.
think it worked well. Yeah, worked well. I think it's great. So
Yeah.
let's see.
Yeah.
Hi, Rajesh. Good afternoon.
Hey, Virendra, hi.
Hi, hi, Giri.
How
Hey,
are you?
Virendra.
Hi, Giri.
Hi.
Now, of course, we need to see how we take this content and,
Yeah.
use it well. So, yeah.
Agree. Agree.
Very good content has come out, Virendra. from this overall thing? No.
Yes, I've been following almost all the sessions on a daily basis.
Okay.
This has been a very good format on doing it for about 2 hours every day. I think we've been able to capture very critical mass. And interestingly, if you look at the people who've been viewing on the YouTube, it's been substantial. I was going through some of the earlier videos. On an average, about 4,000 people have been seeing these. I was very surprised.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
that's
becoming
the kind
more.
of reach that we've been able to manage through by putting this live on YouTube. I didn't expect this number at all.
Yeah. No, and still, I think at at our level, we've not really had a proper marketing plan and all that, right? If we were to do that, this can become much bigger. You see?
Absolutely.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
So, and I think this doing it online and plus couple of hours a day is also I think very practical for a lot of people to also participate in because it doesn't intrude into the full day and they're able to plan things better. So I think
Absolutely.
well.
No, and what and I think the good we stuck to that same time, right? So people know between 3 and 5 for the next 2 weeks. Okay, I like this topic. You'll make time for it, and if you miss it, it's all on YouTube, right? So you can go and access it. So I think this format makes it is a good format, right, for us to. I think even CII, Virendra, you should use this in many other things, but you need someone who holds the program for every day. That's the key. Without allowing it to fall. And I think that was the good part. I was just checking, I just messaged Prakash, he said 61, people spoke across 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that's a pretty large, and if you look at US, we had 4, 5, overseas, Hong Kong,
Absolutely.
India, and mix, right? Advertising, gaming, VFX, good names. I think we just put all our speakers there. It's a very powerful list, government, everybody. We should, after this, Virendra, next week, which we spoke of, and I think even Sujit said, we should now get Amitabh, done to do one session where we present to him the findings of this and do it as a public session and get his views, for it. Yeah.
Certainly.
So Rajan, how do you want to do this today? Should I just, basically maybe spend a minute or two and then, set up the context and then do a Q&A with you guys, which covers all the key themes that we want to cover in terms of what we covered in the, in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We can pick up on some of those key elements and, and sort of, your own perspectives between you and Sharan on what you saw and heard on those themes here broadly.
Yeah, I think that's the right thing. Only before that, I think they want me to just thank everyone. Yes. So I'll do that. And Absolutely. Then so maybe for 2-3 minutes I'll speak, and then we can move into.
And you said you have a hard stop at 4:15, is it?
No, I moved that to 4:30. So
excellent. So 45 minutes is good, yeah. 45 minutes will be good then.
Yeah, 30, 35, 40 minutes, whatever you want to take.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
So Mr. Nivani,
we can start
Mr.
now.
Nivani, yeah. Is it okay to start? Sure, I'll just hand it over to you.
Sorry, has Sharan joined in yet?
Sharan is not joined in yet. I received a message that he'll be joining in. We can start and then probably he's joining in some time.
Okay.
Okay, over to you, Payal.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We now move on to the last leg and the concluding session of the conference. To grace this session today, we have with us Mr. Rajan Navani, President, IDGS, and Vice Chairman and Managing Director, Jetline Group of Companies, Mr. Girish Menon, Partner and Head, Media and Entertainment, KPMG India, and Mr. Sharan Tulsiani, Vice President, IDGS and Games Partnerships, Google Play, who will be joining us shortly. I would request Mr. Rajan Navani to kindly deliver his opening remarks and begin with the last session, please.
So thanks, Payal. A very good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, here in India. And I don't know where others are joining in from, but a good morning and good evening to the colleagues of mine from the industry from around the world. I think It's been an amazing 2 weeks, and I'm here at the closing session, which has been, you know, brought in by the efforts of so many people, to pull it off, to be able to see how at a time like this we could present the India Gaming Show, something that we started back in 2017 and grew upon in 2019. We did not want to move away from the dates that we had blocked with each one of you, with many of you, and actually more so with the industry, in 2021, to say that gaming is something that has emerged very strongly coming out of the pandemic. And I think this innovative methodology that we tried to use, spread it over 2 weeks, create virtual stalls, and still be part of the 24th edition of CII's biennial flagship event, the International Engineering and Technology Fair, was no mean task. And I can tell you that this would not have been achieved, without the support from all of my colleagues from the IGS steering committee, the conference core group members, the executive committee of IDGS, and the tireless effort and work that many of them put in, over the last year actually, and more so, in the last couple of weeks. But if there were few people I had to thank, and there are three people without whose support there is absolutely no way we would have come to this point. And I think we have Girish here with us, as KPMG, as a person. He has really, committed so much of his time, both in thinking, conceptualizing, using his networks and bringing KPMG to be a true knowledge partner. I think the gaming industry has benefited significantly from the knowledge that KPMG has been able to bring to this conference. So I want to first thank Girish and his entire team at KPMG. Next, I want to thank Sharan, the Vice President of IDGS, from Google. Again, Google has powered this event, sponsors as a sponsor, and in many other ways, Sharan has been, again, a very strong support in bringing networks, bringing the knowledge again, into what this conference would mean, and really directionally helping support this initiative. So I also want to use this opportunity to thank Sharan Tulsiani. And last but not the least, I want to thank Akshat Rathi, from Nordman Gaming. Today is his anniversary, so he's not here on this session. But Akshat is another person who put in a lot of effort, mobilized a lot of the networks. And really, again, I think, with all three of them, it is the gaming industry that has benefited, more than anything else. And directionally, as a country, from an India perspective, how do we really take this entire holistic ecosystem for India, forward? I think it is something that we have to be able to build upon. And I must thank all our industry friends, who came out, spared their time, shared the valuable insights, many who have come from different parts of the world, and the knowledge and the cumulative, outcomes of this conference would not have been anywhere close to what we would have liked, what we expected to be if it was not for, each one of you. So I want to thank, all of you for providing your direction to, as I said, something that I believe will emerge out of India as gaming, but will probably drive and shape the future of the world. We cannot take the fact away that India is a country of 1.3 billion people, with 1 in 10 people in the world being an Indian under 25, and gaming being at the, center of the daily life, digital life of the youth. So, I think it is very important that we, look at it in that, with that kind of, lens. I also want, last but not the least, to thank the CIS Secretariat and the IDGS Secretariat for the seamless execution of both the gaming show and the gaming conference. I mean, I can name everyone, right from Virendra and Sujit and Ramesh and Prakash and Neelam, and there are so many people, from the Secretariat, by many others who have been supporting this, who have been here right through. And I think, at the end of the day, this would not have been able to be reaching this stage without the commitment of CII. I think as an institution, Confederation of Indian Industry is standing behind this industry sector that we are very confident will shape the future of what our Prime Minister, talks about when he talks of Atmanirbhar Bharat, a Bharat that will actually be one that will, represent the true nature of what India can do in the world. And I think, engaging with skill sets and talent pools that cross across engineering, art, creative, design, the youthful energy that can go out from India to the rest of the world is something that I truly believe in, and I feel CII's commitment to this is something that I strongly appreciated. We did cover a lot of different topics over the last 2 weeks, and I know Girish will talk about a lot of that. And I think there is nothing at the end of the day when you do an event like this. So we and I think there's so many different aspects and facets that have come out. But as we had one session this morning, which was really redefining entertainment for the world, or at least attempting to do so by introducing a new term, Gollywood, where G really stands for gaming. So if you look at what the world, has looked at entertainment, it's either come geographically, from LA as Hollywood, or Mumbai as Bollywood, and many other places where films and movies and music and all are made. But given that gaming today is an industry that is larger than the Hollywood and movies and music put together, I think the time is only right that entertainment for the future is defined and led by gaming. It is led by the G in global. It is led by the G in good, which is gaming for good, which is what our conference has stood for. And hopefully 5 years from today, gaming will probably be that one activity that will be the unifying force of entertainment, around the world. And I think, being able to put something like that out from a country like India, which had the largest number of downloads of mobile games in the world, is only appropriate. So I do feel that it is time for India to stand up, to assert itself in the global map in a sector that I think has tremendous future potential. Also one which will engage large numbers of people, help them generate livelihood, and really see how we can, build a great industry, not only for India, but for the world. So again, I think it's been a great personal learning experience for me, and for everybody else who has been a part of this entire exercise. And I want to thank each one of you for being here with us through these 2 weeks, and look forward to continuing to deepen this engagement as we move forward. We are now in a virtual world. Many things can happen, and we look forward to staying engaged with everyone. So thank you again, and stay safe. Back to you, Payal, to see how you want to take this further. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Navani, for the opening remarks. May I now request to hand it over to Mr. Girish Menon for moderating the concluding session. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Payal, and thanks, Rajan, for all your kind words. And I think it's you're right. I think this has been a tremendous 2 weeks with some really outstanding sessions and really outstanding and insightful panelists. And like you said, I think even for me personally, I think the learning experience has been paramount. I think I've come out of these 2 weeks far richer in my understanding than when I came in, right? The theme of this conference has been gaming for good, build for India, build for the world, right? And I think it was only appropriate that we started off our sessions during this event with that particular theme. We sort of explored what does it really take for Indian companies to build scale and operate at global levels? And we sort of linked that with the following conversations that we had, where how can the government actually be a catalyst to actually enable this growth and support this growth, not only from in the Indian companies operating globally, but also Indian companies offering content which would be the which will be the larger levels of consumption of gaming in India, right? I think that really has been the core of what we sort of initiated this this conference with. And as we move forward, we sort of explored all aspects of the gaming value chain, right? So starting with who is the consumer, who's the gaming consumer, the profile of the gaming consumer, moving on to how do you monetize the consumer, either through paid purchases or through advertising models as it exists in India, looking at other device-led consumptions like console gaming and PC gaming, looking at how technology is sort of pushing this whole evolution of gaming forward, where we had organizations like Nvidia and and quite a few others talking about what's sort of changing in the gaming landscape in India. We also looked at some emerging models, right, which potentially have the the ability to change the way gaming happens in India. And this included elements like cloud gaming. It included elements like education and gaming. It included elements, which including the one in the beginning today on entertainment and the movie industry and gaming, and how they can actually come together and operate in a synergistic manner. And lastly, we had a session just before this, which in my view is an extremely important session in terms of how do you build and expand the role of women in gaming, both on the supply and the creator side of the ecosystem, as well as on the consumption side of the ecosystem, right? So today, the idea therefore was, I just wanted to briefly bring up these topics and get, sort of overall inputs from both Rajan and Sharan on what their thoughts were on some of these points that got discussed today. And let me start with, this conversation with Rajan. Rajan, again, the theme was gaming for good, build for India, build for the world. And we started appropriately, therefore, with the concept of, how gaming can contribute to an Atmanirbhar Bharat, and what will it take for gaming, companies in India to truly be world class and not just in terms of capability, but also in terms of scale, both in India and across the world, right? So what were your key takeaways in that context, and what do you think are those one or two things that Indian companies need to focus on as they build scale?
So, thanks, Desh. I think you're absolutely right. It's a very important time now for Indian companies to see how scale can be built up, how can, significant capital be deployed in the sector, because the ability for us to be able to create, significant amount of livelihoods, emerges from that fact, right? I think the ability for Indian gaming companies to therefore, bring in the best talent that exists around the world. See, we are playing a catch up to an industry which is already at 160 billion, 170 billion dollars, right? And we are sub-billion dollars. So I think we have to leverage the strength of what has been created in the world in the gaming industry, but at the same time bring our own, ability to change that direction, right? Particularly for India, and then over some years, that will become the direction for the world, right? Because the connection of the youth and the young gamers in India is going to somewhere, kind of resonate with what is happening in other parts of the world, or at least where the future of the world will be headed. So I'm a very firm believer we need a good supportive government, and therefore, at this conference we have the Department of Science and Technology, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, all supporting us, and we had some very good interactions from the government officials as well. So a good supportive government, good influx of capital, developing IPs that resonate with consumers, not only in India, but around the world, localizing it, of course, for India in certain ways, but then, doing a lot more, could be some of the, key things that I thought would help shape the future of gaming from here. And, gaming for good is always a theme that India can stand for, in a world, because again, we have that headway, right, to shape it, shape the size of our industry, the way we want it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
these are some of my thoughts.
Absolutely. So just to add on and to take off from there, right? I think you briefly mentioned the role of the government and the various ministries whose presence we had during this conference. I think one of the points that I wanted to sort of also explore that globally a lot of countries have really evolved in gaming and have been able to manage very strong ecosystems in gaming, and a lot of that has come where the government has been a very active player in supporting the industry. What are some of the measures you think that the government can be involved in, which will sort of proactively enable the growth of this industry?
So you're absolutely right. Even in India, the Honorable Prime Minister did talk about building games based on Indian, stories, and we've seen that, in Scandinavian countries and in many, many parts of the world. But I think most importantly, what we see has happened globally is that, the infrastructure that helps create that ecosystem, right? The ability to create, mechanisms that will engage gaming communities significantly, in many aspects are all things that, government has always played a supportive, kind of role towards, right? And I think in India too, I think, we see certain states, beginning to do that, right? There are states, which are creating infrastructure. They're inviting companies from around the world in the gaming space and in the audiovisual space to come set up the infrastructure in India. Why do we do that? And we found that in many discussions. One thing India continues to become is the backend service provider to the world, right? In that space, I think we've cracked that formula. We kind of know it as a country. We are able to do that. The challenge, therefore, is now how do you incentivize product, IP creation, creating true value, right, from gaming.
Yeah.
Now, that's something that somehow is while it is there, and we have a new software policy which is going to come, which is a product software policy that India is going to create, where I do see that some of these aspects will get addressed. And in our interactions with government, we find that the government is open to listening, from the industry, right? So really, it is for us to go and say, what support do we want? What is it? Is it the ability for greater distribution, reach, government promoting Indian products into the rest of the world, or creating a platform on which Indian companies can go and support? When we did the first two IGSs, right, in India, and we brought huge participation, and Virendra remembers that, from Japan initially and Korea, the governments there actually paid those companies whatever it cost them to set up their stalls and everything in countries like India, right? Through different support mechanisms, right? So it can go to that level of taking your companies globally and placing them there and seeing how it is, to really creating platforms that will enable that, right? So I always look at it from a supportive angle. On the regulatory side, I think government needs to come in India, because somehow, India, again, as I think, is a complex country. Gaming in the traditional sense, which is a $160, $170 billion industry, is how we look at, online gaming, console gaming, and, PC gaming. Whereas in the industry, we have other aspects of gaming, right? We have fantasy sport, we have, real money games, all of which are, which comprise the gaming industry the way it's looked at today, right? Esports. And I think, states are taking certain decisions, right? Because it is a state subject, and different states are taking decisions based on what works for that state, right? So I think taking regulatory kind of approach, or at least having clarity on that would be, again, something that would be helpful for India. And I think directionally we are moving in the right direction. And hopefully, once we are able to deepen the understanding, right, between government, gamers, and the industry, which is what also IDGS and CII are doing really well, I think we'll probably be able to, leapfrog, from where we are.
Excellent. Yeah. And I think the last angle that I wanted to touch upon on this particular topic is that, I think, and when I was involved in one of these panels, I think one of the key elements that came out was when you look at what's needed for Indian companies to really scale up, it could be distilled down into fundamentally two buckets, right? One was skill and the other was capital. Now, capital, obviously, as there is the growing interest that we are seeing from the investor community as well as global players on the Indian market, I'm expecting that that's a problem that will get resolved over time. But how do you sort of address the skill, requirement and build that skill requirement at the highest levels in terms of sophistication for us to be able to really be out there?
Yeah, that is a challenge, right? So like what companies like ours are doing, we are hiring talent around the world, right?
Right.
Because sometimes being able to, especially at certain levels, right? Certain kind of a leapfrogging or a jump that we talk of, only happens when you're working with people who have done it before, right? At least from a process point of view. When you have the process point of view set, then what is really going to differentiate companies is the creative process, which I think every industry, or at least the gaming industry will need. And then, then nothing keeps India behind on that. Right? But, our talent when it comes to engineering, when it comes to art is phenomenal because we are servicing, as we heard even today and yesterday, we're servicing Hollywood, we're servicing the world when it comes to, art and that. I think the design talent, the product talent, again, because we have, not played at the upper end of the value chain globally, to the extent at which we should have. Of course, a lot has changed in India. I think somewhere we have to build both, right? The skill, the talent, and that culture, right? I think, and companies are beginning to do that, right? I think if you really want to become a global company in gaming coming out of India, I don't think you have a choice, And I think the pandemic and all is helping because, today remote working from, offshore, different locations, it is going to become a methodology where collaboration will again be done through, very strong technology tools. So I think it's making it easier, for India to be able to do that. And, once we do that correctly, Girish, the contribution of gaming to the country GDP, and I'm using that number because I feel, that number can become significant and it can become significant really quick, right? Because, there are other aspects to it, right? There is esport, there are, casters, talent pool. There are so many different, people who can drive livelihoods from here. So I think the potential is massive. It's just about us getting there correctly. Yeah.
Got it. No, absolutely correct, Rajan, on this. Sharan, let me now come to you, and I know you've been waiting patiently for a bit. But I think that the point that I wanted to sort of think through with you is just to bring out some of the key takeaways that we had around the whole story of monetization of games in India, right? And I think it's interesting, and I think there were I've participated in one of the sessions with you, and some of the other sessions that I was sort of privy to. I think there were some key interesting elements that come out which are sort of unique to India, right? I think first being that India is at least currently when it comes to casual gaming an ad-led market, right? But on the other hand, in-app purchases and subscription models are actually significantly seeing a lot of traction, particularly over the last 12 to 18 months. And the third angle is also I think the point that we spoke about was how India has sort of leapfrogged the whole console and PC generation, and a bulk of the users in India are fundamentally native mobile gamers, and what that has meant when it comes to how they behave, and particularly on the monetization side. So I think that's one area where I would sort of like to hear your inputs on what do you think were some of the key takeaways around the ability to monetize games in India?
Oh, thanks a lot, man. Thanks, Girish. And I got to say, it's been a real blast being with you on these sessions. You are incredibly versatile, man. You can speak about so many topics with such authority. And I wasn't waiting impatiently. In fact, I was the summary by Mr. Rajan, of 14 days was very masterful and also very encouraging, because you do know that there are, you do know when somebody like him speaks about this industry, it comes from not just purely a place of interest and passion, but it comes from a very deeply connected and practical business mind. And that's really what we need. So I would start off by, answering the monetization question in the way that monetization or money should be spoken about, practical aspects, right? You touched on a few interesting points. We started by talking about leapfrogging the console and the PC generation, and fair enough. But I think the big shift that we've seen that indicates to me that that monetization, as a sort of a post indicator of monetization being on the rise, is the fact that we've now almost stopped talking about PC and console. Right? I've been doing this since 2004, or honestly, I've been in the gaming industry, one form or the other, since I finished school, and the conversation was all around PC and console because we needed that metric to measure and justify the business, and now we've moved so much beyond that. That itself tells me that beyond the industry watchers like ourselves, there is a overall message that's permeated in India to users, to investors, to people in other businesses that, oh, this is a monetizable industry. I don't even need to talk to people in the gaming industry anymore, and they know that it makes money. What's changed? What's changed, interestingly, has been that, yes, the whole swath of people picked up these beautiful smartphone devices and said, I want to be entertained, entertain me. And like it has been in gaming around the world, one of the best forms of entertainment is interactive entertainment, which is gaming. And I just break down the problem that way, right? First, we looked at entertainment, which is like OTT, music, video. It's great. It's lovely. And then I say, how can I up that experience? And in my personal opinion, that's what gaming is. It is a narrative that you can participate in. And it is the narrative that you can involve your social circle in. What's not there to like? And I think it just took a little time for platforms and games to and game developers to understand what it took to monetize in India. And we are now, as of 2020, 2021, a market that can't be ignored, right? From a monetization, consumer monetization perspective. And to the extent that we're sitting in March, and if my rough calculations are correct, right, my personal rough calculations are correct, the deal flow in gaming in the last 3 months or 5 months is comparable to, I think, the last 5 years of the industry, right? That itself is the sign that not only is our developers seeming more and more valuable to investors, to capital, but the user base is seeming more valuable to capital. So that's a big gaming picture about sort of the leading indicators that monetization is in the right direction. After that, we did just 2019, we did a small research at Google where we spoke about what is the Indian gamer, what do they do? And what that really stood out was people do want to pay. It's just that they want to pay in a way that's convenient for them.
Got it.
And I think that's really happened. And they want to pay for content that they like. I think that's really happened. And Indian game developers have seen that. And we see incredibly encouraging signs that will continue. So that's what I have to say on monetization. I hope I broadly answered your question. I know I didn't specifically answer your question.
You did. I think that's I think that's perfect. I think the one or two angles that I just wanted to maybe delve a little bit more on associated with this, right? I think the first angle is and we're seeing this happen already, right? I mean, fundamentally, everybody I was interacting with, right? And whenever I was speaking about monetization, and while everybody was, clear that yes, advertising is a big pie, and yes, it is important, and all of that, and yes, it will grow, right? I think, and that positivity was there. But what was interesting to me is that everybody in their minds was very clear that fundamentally this is a paid product in some form or the other. This is a paid experience, and that's the real potential of monetization that exists for any kind of a game, right? And I think while India has been sort of slow in picking that up, but we've started to see a lot of traction on paid monetization, in-app monetization. over the last 12 to 18 months or so, right? And I think the lockdown has pushed that behavior even further up, right? How do you, how do you see that progressing as you go forward? And is there, I think there are two parts that I wanted to get a sense from you, right? I think the first is uh, what can hold this back, if at all, right? And is there a ceiling that you think is there unless the behaviors change even more fundamentally? So just wanted to get a sense on where do you think the potential for paid monetization lies, and is there anything that can hold it back?
Oh, great question. And a equally difficult one to answer now.
That's my job.
You're making me think, how much time do we have now? You know, in terms of the potential, right? I think the potential is as much in the same. We've seen it globally. I don't want to say that, oh, this country and that country, because it's often sort of these false equivalences that people then pick up and, make stories out of. So I'll say that we can look, however, at our own consumer behavior in terms of things like e-commerce and say, were you and I sitting in 2009 and asking each other, what is the upper end of e-commerce consumption in India? It would not seem, or let me put it this way, if I told you what the actual number was of 2021 back in 2009, it would seem beyond fiction, right? Not even fictional, not even like an optimistic output. It would be, you would, it'd be like, that's ridiculous. Where would 35, what are the numbers, $40 billion, whatever the number is, dollars come from? How will India spend that? But the ecosystem rose up to meet the demand, right?
True.
What is the demand for this new breed of mobile uh, entertainment as it gets even more and more tuned for Indian users? Right? Let's be clear. We've got so far without building for India. Imagine how far we'll go when we start building for India. And that's sort of where the theme comes in, right? Build for India and build for the world. Because India is so many market segments, and that's a tricky place. You can have people who will spend. I have seen this, and I'm sure you'll ask a game developer. I've been in the gaming industry pre-Google also, but I know people from India who paid consciously $1,000 to play a game, like on microtransactions. Right? This is my personal experience. And then you have the other side that will not pay. So India has so many segments that if you build for India, you do end up building for the world. And so what is the upper limit? It's not just Indian consumers. It's for a developer. The world opens up. If you can make Indian consumers spend, you have achieved an advanced level of game design and game monetization that's applicable everywhere else. So I don't believe that a strict ceiling exists. What could hold us back?
That's what I want to hear.
I mean, look, most of my personal beliefs, right? So I'm very clear on this.
True.
What could hold us back? I think something better coming along. And just looking at it, again, I remember being there the moment the gaming industry crossed, the global gaming industry cost $10 billion, right? All of us were like, oh my God, that's insane. Now we're, getting closer to 200 billion and nobody's blinking. So what would something hold us back? I don't know. I think if like anything else, disruptive evolution would be the only thing, in my opinion. But I suspect that disruptive evolution will also come out of the gaming industry, and maybe as in most fairy tale and stories, and even the real world, disruption comes from markets like India and China to a great extent.
Got it.
Right?
Got it. Understand.
So that's all.
Fair enough. Very interesting. The other angle, Sharan, I wanted to sort of explore with you, and again, I think you will have a good perspective given your role, is the profile of the Indian consumer, right? When you look at the gaming, the Indian gamer in that sense, right? And I think we were in a panel where we sort of discussed what who's the Indian gamer, are they different in any form from what we are sort of used to seeing globally, and more importantly, what kind of evolution are we seeing in the profile of the Indian gamer over the last, say, 2 to 3 years, and what does that mean for the industry, right, as an opportunity to tap into? So do you have a sense on user behavior, profile, demographics that be worth sort of thinking through?
I've personally stayed away from demographics as much as possible because I think that there are other aspects of decision making that the data can put out for you. Also, demographics sometimes, in my opinion, has some inherent biases towards it, right? Male, female, things like that. That being said, there's very little I can share, but I will say that it is incredibly exciting, and for developers looking to take advantage, I would strongly recommend that you think in segments and you look at your own game data, your own user data, and you use as advanced analytics as you can to segment your user base. Because India, in many behavioral patterns, and anybody from the media business will tell you, is like working with many countries. It's like a continent. In terms of segments, it's like a continent, right? There's not just, you don't just have users who spend so much money and this much in socioeconomic. It's socioeconomic, then by state. That also differs.
Understand.
So there's a lot to it. Segment, and we're still at an early stage. I think that the gamer is evolving. In the previous panel, we had Purnima, who mentioned a very interesting fact, which was that a lot of female gamers don't see themselves as gamers because the image of gamers is a hardcore gamer with headphones and a screen playing multiple games, rather than somebody who plays Candy Crush. But my mother doesn't know this, but because she plays Candy Crush, she's now a gamer. So I think that is an insight that we should, as the Indian gaming industry, should embrace.
Understand. No, fair enough. Rajan, just moving on to another topic, and I think we had 2 or 3 different panels around this one topic, around the technology evolution in gaming, right? Just wanted to get your sense on what are, in your view, are potentially 2 or 3 key angles around where technology is evolving and which you think can potentially play a very disruptive role from an India perspective in particular.
This is a big topic, right? Because at the end of the day, when we say that India will start taking leadership in gaming, and the world looks at us when it comes for technology, right? For everything. And I think this comes out everywhere. Technology in India has great strength, right? And if we are talking of any industry, therefore, I strongly believe that the role India can play is massive. And like what Sharat rightly put it, all frugal innovation and everything happens in India, right? I think, technology is a great leveler, when it comes to, how do you really democratize, monetization, so many things, right? So I see 5G as a big game changer for the global gaming industry, because I think once connectivity comes to, to that level, and, you're able to move cross platforms, I think that will all become very seamless, when it comes to gaming, particularly, when you look at cloud gaming and, different ways in which people will consume, entertainment content, right? And I think the fact that it's two-way just adds to the, to the merit of this. The other aspect is, gaming has always been considered something which is virtual, which is also we used to talk, it's the virtual world, it's a real, it's a create, you create. And what we are finding now is that with the advancement of, virtual reality, of course, which is connecting reality to the virtual world, augmented reality, and then, of course, mixed reality, where there will be a very little distinction between what is your real world and what is your virtual world. I mean, today, if you see young people, they're on in the virtual world, social media for so much of the time. If 2 people are sitting next to each other, they're probably chatting, digitally and not, physically. So, which is the world that they are in? Are they in that world, or are they in the physical world where we are sitting? I mean, today you and I are talking to each other on a street, right? Otherwise, it would be. So I have this very, thing that the world itself, whether it's going to be virtual, it's going to be digital, it's going to be physical, it's going to redefine itself. And again, how gaming can take advantage of that, right? Because, when you're in a digital world, you can use technology, you can use intelligence, AI, many other aspects. So I'm very excited with what technology will do to this industry. But I know many other things came up in many discussions. These are the few things that stand out in my mind.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. The other thing, Rajan, as we move along, I think the one key area which is potentially, I wouldn't necessarily say a downside, but it's also something that, does come up as, as something that people do get concerned about, about gaming, right? I think in India, with preponderance of, the whole real money gaming story, and there have been some instances of misuse and some challenges around that, as also, angles around addiction, around, children spending, overspending on gaming, and, all of that. As a gaming industry, right, how do you work towards bringing a balance and bringing responsibility in around gaming, right? And how do you sort of, ensure that ultimately this is value incremental, for an individual, both at a, at when it comes to entertainment, but also at a personal level, right? So how do you balance all of that, and how do you bring the whole responsible, gaming element into this? How, as an industry, how do you think about this?
Yeah, I think there is a tremendous amount of reason for us to believe that the game developers, right, have to take a lot more responsibility. We cannot. If you take any entertainment industry, right? You take films, take whatever else is there. There are different components to what can take it beyond what it is meant for, right? So in gaming, it is the amount of time spent on games, right? I mean, so finding natural ways in which your game will not allow people to play beyond a significant amount of time per day, is there, right? There are influences in gaming, be it violence, be it other things. So I think warnings on which are the age brackets and who should be playing what. I think this is all something that the industry, I think, globally has been talking about, and I think some countries have been able to implement it. But the responsibility there does lie on the game developers, right? Today, your consumer audience might move you, or might move you in any direction, right? I mean, today, because look at a country like India, right? The gap between the inequality gap in income, the literacy gap that exists, right? People will look at something and identify that as gaming, right? Maybe it is close to gambling, right? How do we, as a responsible country, as a responsible community, really be able to bucket everything correctly? Nothing is wrong or nothing is right, but we got to bucket it. So whoever is coming in, understands what they're coming in or what they're signing in for, right? And I think creating that awareness is so critical. And I think platforms like this, what we've done now, are the first few steps of building blocks to do that, right? First is a convergence on a view, and then once you all converge, whether it's government, stakeholders, others, then really creating an awareness, and that will then give a solid foundation on which we can build different aspects of this industry, not only in India but globally. But I thought, I think it's a good timing for us to be talking about all
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sharan, wanted your perspective also on the same point around responsible gaming. And what do you think are some of the initiatives the industry can actually proactively take, right, to sort of get a more balanced approach to all of this? Sorry, Sharan, you're on mute.
Hey, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can't go through a session without that you're on mute statement coming through, right?
I swear it's a sign of our times. I think it's one of those nightmares I'll keep having even years after this is all over. No, I really haven't. I don't have anything thought of to discuss on that point right now. But I think you've asked an interesting question, and I think Rajan's had a great answer. I'll need to think about it a little deeper.
I understand. Fair enough. So fine. I think that sort of covers, I think, most of the key topics that we ended up speaking and discussing during this last 2 weeks. And like I mentioned, I think it's been a phenomenal 2 weeks, because I think we had a very, very strong mix of participants across the value chain of gaming. Outside the gaming value chain, where we had ed tech companies, we had entertainment companies, we had technology companies coming and speak. And I think also, very importantly, a strong balanced mix of both global and Indian participants. And I think we've been able to get a very well-rounded 360-degree view of what's what's happening with the Indian gaming industry and where it's sort of headed. And I'm hoping that all the participants and the viewers have had something or the other of their own to take away based on what they've seen and heard over the last couple of weeks or so. I know I've had. So I would just like to thank everybody who's spent time participating in all these panels, and also to Rajan and Sharan for taking the time out today. And I think with that, I would just like to conclude this panel. And Payal, back to you. And thanks so much for all your time and effort.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Girish. May I request, Sharan, if you could please say a few words and deliver your closing remarks, please, before we conclude.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a huge honor to have this opportunity to deliver the closing remarks. And thank you, Mr. Rajan. Thank you, Girish, and everybody else. I just want to say that it's been an absolute. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but also incredibly exciting working with the team here at CIA and the IDGS as a group together, pulling this event together. It's been phenomenally successful. I think the last 2 weeks, the sessions we've had, the speakers we've had, I hope everybody watching has come away with insights that are actionable, insights that were surprising, hopefully pleasantly so, and insights that can go about and enhance their discussions and the value they bring to their own organizations. It has been challenging putting it together because in the pandemic, finding speakers, working with, frankly speaking, if you look at the panel who put this event together, incredibly busy people, right? And to get everybody to commit this sort of time to bring this out there for the community, for the ecosystem, it's not just because of passion, but it's because a very pragmatic and practical belief and understanding, and I would say prediction, that we all personally have, that this is the industry that is going to be huge and super important in India going forward. It already is. It's only going to be bigger. The theme, built for India, built for the world. It's important to understand why now, right? And I think we finally come to a point where we can clearly sit down and say, if you're going to build for India, you're also building for the world. It isn't necessarily one or the other. Is that the market has evolved, the developers have evolved, the ecosystem has evolved, the capital has evolved, right? And so this is an opportunity that is no longer limited. This is an opportunity that doesn't have the traditional boundaries that it had. And so it is the perfect time to look back at your assumptions, challenge them, and recommit if that's what's needed. And I'm also really proud of the decisions. And I'm going to close this very quickly by talking about something that's a little forward-looking. And that comes from one of the decisions I think that we've made in this over the last 2 weeks, and the kind of topics we've picked and the kind of ideas that we've thought about. The topic on Gollywood. At first, it's easy to be slightly, almost dismissive and say, "Oh, that's just another term." But if you really think about it, it is challenging ourselves and challenging the audience to think about the future of gaming. It looks at the industry and says, this is gaming industry, is hundreds and billions of dollars today. But you know what's also part of it, what's a huge part of it, is the entertainment aspect. Streamers, the younger generation, the generation, generation and a half after me. I'm an old man in the gaming industry. Most of us who are attending this conference and have our own companies or funds or whatever it is, where we've been here fairly long. But the next generation is clearly about these celebrities, about the drive to create amazing content around the industry. And that is challenging, I think, the audience to also think about where does this go next? If gaming is now so amazingly looking at all, it is captured the imagination, not just viewers, but players, where does this come together? What's next? And I love that is something that we can take out towards the end of the IDGS and CII session. And so that's really where I'd like to close, is that I hope this session has been valuable, and I hope that what you're taking from this makes you look forward, makes you think of predictions, and makes you more informed about where the future is going to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharan. Thank you to all of you for being such a good support and for spending 2 weeks with us through this conference. It has been amazing, and I'm sure the audiences have really enjoyed it through the 2 weeks. I would like to close this concluding session and the third edition of the Indian Gaming Show and Conference with this, which is being organized by CII in association with the Indian Digital Gaming Society. And for the last time, I would like to again thank our partners, Google, Western Digital, Jet Synthesis Private Limited, Scientific Games, Hangama Games, Nodwin Gaming, Asus, Critical X Exports, Game.tv, and our content partner KPMG for extending their support. My sincere thank you to all the dignitaries and participants for joining us through these 2 weeks. We'll assemble again, hopefully, for the fourth edition of the India Gaming Show and Conference in 2023, and hopefully in the physical mode. So have a wonderful evening, one and all.
Yeah,
Thank you and stay
sorry,
safe.
Payal, Raju here. I think Virendra should have the last word. You know, I want to thank CII and everyone for, all the effort, and he's been with chasing us for the whole year, really been at it, Sujit and me and your whole team. So Virendra, I think, thank you, and thanks to all of you, and just maybe last word from you. Yeah.
You're on mute. I think just one more time we had to say this.
No, we can't hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
Virendra, we can't hear you. No. I think just wait. Okay. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.